Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for November 7th through 11th, 2022. Well, here we are just less than 24 hours away from the total lunar eclipse in Taurus. Incredibly powerful energy of this culmination of eclipse season happening at 4 a.m., 4:03 a.m. Mountain Time in the US. And so visible to the Western US and a very powerful blood moon. So this lunar eclipse happens at 16 degrees Taurus, 1 minute. And the nodes of the moon, that's when eclipses happen, is when they interact with the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon are where the sun and the moon's orbits intersect. And so what happens is, of course, a lining up where we get these eclipses. And the eclipse energy is about aligning up. So it's a timeline alignment. It's about things being hidden and revealed. And in a lunar eclipse, we're talking about some shadowy energy. The moon represents our emotional self. And so it's a very powerful energy as we have this full moon, this lunation, this total lunar eclipse in conjunction to Uranus. And Uranus and Taurus. So this is really interesting because Uranus has been in this square with Saturn we've been feeling it on and off for the last year and a half, more like a little over a year and a half now. And we've had a big shift because on October 23rd, Saturn turned direct, and that just kind of means that these planets are going to be separating out of this square. Uranus is still retrograde, and just today retrogrades back to 16 degrees, literally meeting the moon for this total lunar eclipse. And it's really powerful because Uranus represents higher frequency vibrations and an upgrade, especially in the earth sign of Taurus. We're talking about an embodiment of higher frequency vibrations. Now, supernova souls have been coming to know that, I mean, we've always had a sense, right? Like there's so much more to this story, and there's so much more to you. We've already lived so much more advanced. Actually, all the true human souls on this planet have. And we're here to lead the way because we have that closest in our memory as advanced souls. And so it's really powerful because Uranus represents this like dipping down of our higher wisdom. There's an opening right now in the Akashic records. Very powerful. The astral plane, the lower astral plane is getting cleaned up, which is very interesting because it's been literally the lower astral plane has been used as a weapon by the control energies to keep it clogged up with dissatisfied, stuck souls. And this is a huge part of the work that you've been doing that you don't even know you've been doing. It's like, oh, it's exhausting, right? Everybody seems super tired over these last few days. I think it's these eclipse energies and this literal upgrade we're getting on a cellular level with this Uranus Taurus moon activation. Because right across from Uranus and the moon, zapping our whole fundamental sense of self, it's like, we have the Sun and Mercury together. Exact. They're coming together. Today is the day that Mercury has its turn crossing over the south node of the moon at 13 degrees Scorpio. And Venus started that um, earlier this week or last week, the end of last week. And so this whole weekend, it's been really, really intense buildup. I mean, and here we have election day in the US tomorrow. It's just like, hold on to your hat. Um, Very powerful messages for us here because the Sun and Mercury coming together, and Venus is not too far off. And so we've had this whole it's a parade, it's like a Day of the Dead parade. Maybe this is why the astral plane is clearing because it's like the veil is getting thin. So it just can't the truth of the spirit is getting so stronger in our lives. And that in itself is clearing up this astral plane, but it's also something we've been working on other levels for a very long time. Um, so the Sun and Mercury, when people in your if there's this conjunction in your birth chart, it's brilliant mind. It's just like an ability to think and receive information and communicate it in a crystal clear way. It's amazing. And so, but Mercury in the sky and the sun together um, can also, for us right now, is like bringing up as the Akashic records are opening up and our frequencies are expanding. We're also having to deal with karma and contractual arrangements around our power that we didn't even know we had, because you have to like start moving back into your power in order to find these contractual arrangements. And it's all on the table. So there's a lot of the sun, Mercury is like the brilliant mind, but it also is these planets are in this square with Saturn and Aquarius. So Uranus retrograded back to 16 degrees Taurus, still only 1 degree out of square with Saturn, 17 degrees Aquarius. And is that, yep, or Saturn, no, Saturn's at 18. So now they're 2 degrees in, they're still in square, but 2 degrees out, coming to 2 degrees out. They've been 1 degree for this whole last period of time. And so it's like this is coming off. And when the squares come off, that's where it's like, okay, what is this about? And Saturn Square Uranus has this incredible pressure and tension on the structures of our life that have yet uh, had been able to change, to adjust to the new frequencies and vibrations. We all know this, right? It's like, I feel like a completely different person, but everything's just ho humming along out there for these people. What's going on? And this is where we're at. It's coming to a head because our personal planet's getting involved in this parade of stars of, Scorpio. It's like that hidden part of ourselves, and it could be shameful places and ego attachments and all that, but it's also our power that we haven't been able to get over the fear programming and break the contractual arrangements where we think we need somebody's permission to come to it into our own God-given source power. The highest form, this is so important right now. The highest form of authority in our realm is a human soul in a body. You got the body, you got the power. I know it's weird because like we feel so powerless right now. That's how they want us to feel. And no wonder there's so much agenda going into trying to separate the human soul from the body. And yet, supernova souls, we've been through so much, like hell and back. It's not working and it's not going to work. And so, nothing can stop this bigger you from birthing and blooming. And we're in a huge time of preparation for this. We know with Mars retrograde, it isn't a time to really put yourself out there or move forward in big projects. It just isn't. It's a time of inner journey deep into the depths of our psyche. In Gemini, Mars retrograde in Gemini, it's about where we gave away our voice and our power, where we gave away our power because we gave away our voice and we allowed ourselves to be silenced. And that was just part of the game that played out. But it's like lifetimes of frustration over this brewing inside the supernova soul. And wow, it's such powerful astrology because this moon in Taurus for this total lunar eclipse, exactly opposite of the sun and Mercury together. It's an activation of the brilliant mind in square and activation on a cellular level with higher frequency vibrations and the bigger truth of who we are. In square and a T square to Saturn, there in Aquarius. So the square with Saturn in Aquarius is qualifying this whole business, everything that's coming up. kind of points back to, well, you could just look at it metaphorically, or it could be an actual past life. But a lot of karma and stories coming up from Atlantean time, as the indication has come that Saturn and Aquarius, or that Atlantean time was involved in Age of Aquarius. And so Saturn is the ruler of time and reality, the structures of our manifest reality. In Aquarius, it's like we're trying to move into the Aquarian age, but we got some shit left over from the last Aquarian age that hasn't been resolved. What's that? The misuse of our power. Now, we've been told it was we misused our power, but it was not us. That's not really true. Our power was misused and we allowed it to be misused. Literally from the beginning, because we didn't know, and we didn't know how evil people could be. And we didn't know that they were creating a weapon with the technology that we brought to Earth in order to be able to reset civilization again and again. Um, so there were factions of priests and priestesses. They were totally equal in Atlantean time. Um, But that's where the imbalance occurred, and so but there was all these factions, and of course, in order to distract the priests and priestesses from this dirty work that was going on, of course, there was the infighting, right? And who is right in the right way of the way to do the things that have always been done. Now, these patterns played out through our whole evolution in every religious structure. And so it's very strange because it's like a whole bloom of this kind of like know-it-all um, priest inside of you after you have been working so hard to silence yourself, right? And this is this Mars retrograde in Gemini. So what's going to happen when Mars goes direct, January 12th? We could have a tidal wave of truth and information and proclaiming of spiritual truth. Um, And this is where we need to be really careful in these times because we know we're coming to this we can just feel the buildup to some sort of shift on a very dramatic and dynamic level. And we have to understand the factions and the energies at work here and the power of our awareness and consciousness, because that's really all we are, right? We know this is an illusion. It's literally, we don't know exactly. It's like some sort of projection of consciousness. So we have to understand that consciousness is really the only power, and that's our attention. And they want, it's like, which side are you on? And how are you going to prove to the other side that you're more right than they're wrong? And the right way to do it, right? It's like we really need to recognize when our attention goes to that place and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Be like, I can't take a side because I have already identified with the presence and the center and the source within, and no longer can play those games. Bringing our attention back to the consciousness that we are, bringing our attention and our energy back to what it is we're here to create and be in energy, live and breathe the truth of this garden, this Gaia consciousness, this return to the golden age, to our wealth within. I mean, we can't have a full moon total eclipse fixed T square in Taurus with Uranus and Mercury without it being a massive message about our wealth. Okay, because Venus or Taurus is our ruled by Venus, and it's our self-worth and our value system. It's also money and resources, what you need to survive and your relationship to those. And so uh, you cannot look at this astrology and not see clearly that this is an illumination, a brilliant illumination of the truth of who you are as a spiritual being. The treasures inside of you, we know we've been playing small. We've been shying away from the bigger part of ourselves because of all these bullshit karmic stories that started all the way back in Atlantean time. And so we are uncovering the treasures as the Akashic records begin to open for us as we're ready and can allow, and the veil becomes thin, and we start again talking to our higher self, talking to all that's in alignment with our higher self, only going there. See, we're at this end game that I'm try to describe, but it's like I can see this path where humanity gets to this crisis point, which is typically created by outside forces with our own consciousness, though. And then there's a savior energy, right? And we know we have to heal this distortion from the Piscean age because we, through our own connection to source and Christ consciousness, is our own savior, right? It's the only way we get to go. We know this. And it's kind of like, oh, humanity, we're going to save you. And then it's like, come on with us. And it's just onto their next spaceship, like contrived reality. So we have to be really careful at this end game place to bring our attention. Attention is attraction, our consciousness, the power of our consciousness, and just come back to center. When you feel that polarizing energy, and it's like everywhere around you, it wants to pull you into it. Do you notice that? And you have to be just like really good at changing the subject and energetically bringing a focus to something else. you know, it's um, but it can be a really powerful time for this. It's like we're going within to claim our voice so that it can come forward in a more true, more real way, beyond what we can imagine. So, this leading up to this total lunar eclipse that happens this early this morning in Mountain Time, and so um, we're still about let's see 6 hours away or 26 hours away. Anyway, we're about, yeah, we're 20, yeah, anyway. Here we are coming into these eclipse energies, and this is how it is. We have this culmination, very powerful energies that we can feel. And this has to do with just a few days ago, we had Venus cross the south node, then the sun yesterday, and today Mercury and the sun coming into this very powerful conjunction. At the same time, Venus has just made, uh, today, Venus is in square to Saturn. So Venus is the first trigger. The Uranus square Saturn, we felt that this weekend. And now Mercury and the sun together square triggering this square. Now it's interesting all this talk about our bigger self and who we really are, because when you have a T square, these are the squares are in fixed the same energy signs, either cardinal, mutable, or fixed. So when you have a T square, that other corner is missing, and it's almost like a huge spotlight gets put on that, and that's in the Leo placement. So it's a calling forward of our light within, a breaking down of our ego constructs from being leaders in the past where we got caught into these factions and distracted. And now, basically, so we talked about our power being misused, and we could see that in a big thing playing out of creating a very destructive weapon. But today, we allow our power to be misused when we allow our attention to go to energetic frequencies that are not in alignment with our greater truth. So it's like all day long, we are having the opportunity to bring ourselves back to center, back to consciousness, and make sure that our awareness is not misused. Our power is not misused. This is everything we're dealing with here, because in order to get into the Aquarian age, we cannot take loyalties. We cannot have outside loyalties where we have allowed access to our power. And because then we'll just lose it all if we come, we need to be absolute in sovereign autonomy, which is basically self contained as our own universe and light body in order to go to the Aquarian age. This is just the deal. So, the power of our consciousness and taking it back. Because for the second half of November, there's a really intense opposition coming between Pluto in Capricorn and Black Moon Lilith in Cancer. Now, right now, Black Moon Lilith is an exact trine with Neptune, harmonizing the Mars square Neptune and spiritualizing the darkest dark. Now, Capricorn is associated, it's ruled by Saturn, it's associated with the father energy and the keeper of time and authority. And Cancer is the mother and source and home and love and the feminine and the mother. So it's we are having this massive activation of like, whoa, shit's really weird and it's all at this crazy tipping point. But then Black Moon Lilith trine Neptune is saying this is our opportunity to find that darkest dark we haven't been able to get our hands on and just bring it, spiritualize it back into the light, claiming back our bigger spiritual truth, you know, claiming our attention and our energy to be unequivocally on that, our consciousness, not on the play that the matrix reality around us, the simulation wants us to be in. One by one, we're taking our power back every day. It's so beautiful. Do not let yourself get into the story right now. It's like this is part of the Neptune transits. It's like more information that's actually a whole bunch of truth and a little bit of lies to gaslight us again and again and again. And it's like, all right, I'm taking my precious consciousness and I'm going to build and be in the truth of this oneness experience here. We came here to come back together in oneness and still live in duality and build back the garden. It's so beautiful, but we had to go so far away. And right now we're in a sorting situation where things have got to get really intense. And it's just like, but use it as your opportunity to come back to center and source and put your attention there. Okay, so we've got this parade of planets crossing the South Node in Scorpio. The South Node are past karma, what's keeping us back from the past. That's Venus, Mercury, and the Sun, or the Sun and Mercury. And so it's like, who are you? Who do you think you are? And your feminine side, your deepest emotions, deepest, dark, hidden. I mean, the insecurities, uncomfortable feelings have been coming up, just like, on the surface, but it's such a great opportunity to just, because it shows us exactly where our false self is, and to just be like, that feeling. I feel this feeling that's ego based. And then I have a whole bunch of shame around experiencing that. Like, this is like human condition, right? And it's time for us to rise above all of this psychological stories and clean out the deepest hidden recesses of those corners and spiritualize that darkest dark, particularly the dark mother archetype. The mother archetype keeps us from feeling worthy of receiving the blessings of this world and our own blessings as the brilliant superstars that we are. And so this whole mother, father, God thing is on the table. False authority structures. Pluto in Capricorn represents false authority structures. And Black Moon Lilith, the deepest, darkest distortions of the feminine. And yet, in that place, completely alone in the wilderness, with no guide and no hope, that's when the God consciousness, the more true essence of who we are, can step in and reign. And so it's like stepping into the fires. And in this case, letting the waters wash over us, letting go of our ego constructs and the shore and all we've been holding on to, and being in the flow of life again. So, because something really beautiful is happening, Jupiter is in the next week, will retrograde back to 28 degrees Pisces. And it's intense, Jupiter being here back in the end degrees of Pisces and Mars retrograde and all of this Scorpio energy in the eclipse season. I'm seeing people reliving the past. So know this is happening. All of a sudden, your physical body expressing symptoms. You're like, what? I thought I was healthy again. And old karmic patterns, old people, old stuff coming up. It's just like, ugh, going into the trenches. of that muddy dungeon, right? But it's like we got to clean that up for good and get to the real raw truth. And with the Akashic records opening up, that is everything because it's like our true history and truth as a soul that's been stolen from us. When you see a past life picture and you understand the dynamic, it's like you uncovered a mystery and you no longer have to put a bunch of bullshit energy into that problem because you see it, it's like, oh, that's what it was. Oh, yeah. No. Okay. And so, very powerful time that we're in here because Uranus always brings an opportunity for wisdom from your higher self to come trickling in. And with the Sun, Mercury, the brilliant mind activation, you can receive it now. And just a little bit of that actual truth can set you free from a whole bunch of lies, right? It could be that there's that one lifetime, a really sticky lifetime, and you haven't gotten it resolved and it's been deep hidden in your subconscious. And then it turns out that you find your place where everybody around you is part of that lifetime. And it's like there's just no way out. And the only way out is to go within and be in that place of center and consciousness and power. So the South Node Scorpio, what's holding us back from the past, and then all of these planets coming into this Saturn Square Uranus, and it's like finally, and same thing with South Node. We haven't had any activation of the South Node yet, even though it's been a year or so since the South Node's been in Scorpio. And so here we have this massive activation of the Saturn square Uranus, which is like, why are we not seeing the changes in our manifest world that represent these energetic changes we've been going through? It's like we've got parallel realities. Are they going apart? Or are they coming together? Are they going to crash into a whole new reality? What's happening? And so this trigger of the Saturn square Uranus is like a tipping point, and we've been feeling this, right? Like you come to that tipping point, and then it never tips. And this is exactly how we've been held back in our evolution again and again and again. You get to that threshold place where you're about to take back your power, and then boom, like whack a mole, knocked down, beat up, punished, you know. And it's all this threshold energy of where we ourselves and where we bought into this fear programming and authority contracts that we need somebody's permission or we can't handle our own conscious power. But more and more every day, we're like having the absolute knowing within ourselves that we've already been way more than this. We've already experienced way more expanded technology and experience. You can't hold us back. It's ours. You could take the memories, but it doesn't take away the energetic, the truth imprinted in our DNA and energetic field. Oh, no wonder there's such an attack on the DNA. And so this is this incredible squeeze. And when the personal planets are involved in the bigger planet configurations, it's like bringing it home. So we've had the Saturn square Uranus for a year and a half, but it hasn't really hit home in our personal life. So where in our personal life is that we know changes need to be made, but we haven't been able to make them. And that's where the pressure is. And it's all around whether we can receive our wealth and feel worthy of who we are as higher vibrational, technologically advanced beings, where if we can receive our brilliancy, or if are we going to stay in the loop of forgetfulness again and again in this karmic never ending cycle. And so this is where it's so powerful to study astrology because it's like we're being catapulted. And when you take that energy and move with it, because what happens after all of these planets, first Venus and then Mercury and Sun together, then Mercury surpasses the Sun. So it'll be Venus, Mercury, the Sun, as will then come into an interaction with, I talked about Jupiter moving back to 28 degrees Pisces. Black Moon Lilith is coming into those degrees of Cancer. And then these personal planets moving through those same degrees of Scorpio. So a grand water trine. And the grand water trine makes kite shape. So the kite shape has an axis, a vertical axis, and that is this opposition between Pluto and Capricorn and Black Moon Lilith and Cancer. Now, the top of the kite Pluto in Capricorn is like what's guiding and directing the energy. And that's really powerful because Pluto is now direct. That means heading into Aquarius next year. And so it's a huge shift. Pluto spends like 248 years in this. And so, wow, or to go around the cycle. And so, all the signs. And so Pluto's very slow moving and it's a very powerful energy. And so Pluto at the top of the kite is saying the masculine, kind of like this energy of the father is leading us into the age of Aquarius. But also Pluto and Capricorn is about those authority constructs and structures that are have kept us from being in our own autonomy. It keeps us from that threshold place, keeps us from accessing our higher power and feeling safe in our higher power. So all of those constructs and contracts are on the table, and the kite is directly heading in that direction. The kite is really interesting. When you have a kite shape in your birth chart, it has the energy of it's an instrument that's meant to fly, but it needs lift, it needs air, it needs to go to the edge of the cliff, or, you need to catch that breeze. So a lot of people will have a kite shape, but they don't necessarily get all the pieces of their kite together to be able to fly that kite until later in life. And this is this powerful energy because it's coming on the end of those Pluto square Uranus, or I mean, Saturn square Uranus triggers, and those last through like the 12th or 14th. And the kite begins with Venus activating the kite on the 12th or so. So it's like we're going to go right from this intense squeezing in our personal life of like hitting home, you can't go this way anymore. It's like up against the wall of those structures you continue to put up with, but are not in alignment with your truth. And then it's like shifts right into this kite energy. And the kite energy will be through the second half of November. And so, first Venus, then Mercury, and then the Sun will be making this shape. And so, the top of the kite, the little triangles, by um, are created by sextiles. So we've got Pluto and Capricorn in sextile to not too far, 2 degrees. They'll be out of sextile. Jupiter at 28 degrees Pisces, um, and Pluto at 26 degrees Capricorn. And then the other sextile mates are these Scorpio planets making their way through Scorpio. So a water trine kite, so a trine makes the body of the kite. And then you want to look at what is going to steer that kite. The direction is coming from Pluto saying, hey, we're moving into Aquarius and we got to deal with this shit, right? And then the base of the kite, mother, the dark mother inverted back to the loving mother of us feeling at home, welcome, and safe to live and receive the abundance, our own abundance, and together with the earth in this Gaia consciousness to build back that garden. And so that's the rudder of the kite that kind of like holds the focus and direction, the base of the kite. And the grand water trine, perfect energy for us to move all this stuck stuff from the Scorpio south node and the squares. So the pressure, it's like for supernova souls, the Saturn square Uranus is lifetimes of not being able to have your life in alignment with who you are. And the Mars retrograde, incredibly frustrating. And yet we got to go deeper within to be able to find our confident voice that's going to speak that crystal clear truth that's going to pierce in the vibrational reality, that created all and fracture that matrix. you know. So that timing on that, we've got very powerful Jupiter going retrograde back to into this kite. And Jupiter at 28 degrees will be kind of like holding this kite, lifting, launching the kite, and then Jupiter turns direct on the 24th or on the 24th. That's the same day as a new moon, the next lunation after this one, which will be a completion of the eclipse energies, a new moon at 1 degrees Sagittarius. So, um, That's when Venus and Mars, I mean, Venus and that's when Venus and Mercury finally catch up to each other. Mercury catches up to Venus from the 20th to the 23rd, leading right up to this. Jupiter turning direct, the Sun moving and moving into Sagittarius. The Sun, Venus, and Mercury will don't come together. They stay together for quite a while, the whole second half of November, but they don't come together into their exact conjunction until they're in Sagittarius, the early degrees of Sag. So that's going to be a complete shift of energy, even though we still have Mars retrograde and Jupiter still is going to take a while to come out of retrograde shadow. But it makes this next 2-week period of time very intense, squeezing and going through the portal and bringing ourselves back to center and stepping into the fires and getting into the flow so that we can lift up. When you lift up and you could get out of the duality and out of the all this division and distraction, and you can see that bigger picture, have one glimpse in the Akashic records, see that bigger picture. The bigger picture you see is you and your greater potential. And supernova souls, we're done shying away from it. We're done buying into, on any level of our consciousness, that there's any energy out there that has a say uh, for whether we can come into our God given right, our power, our direct connection to source. And we've already expressed this in such a beautiful, higher technology way. And so nothing's stopping it. And now it's starting to make sense. This whole message all along that we've been getting, that supernova souls are here to lead the way. And this Uranus full moon, Taurus T-square opposite Sun Mercury, is saying it's time to embody that truth of who you are, not just look at it. It's a story in the stars. But bring that right here on Earth and anchor it in. There is no authority outside of you. It's entirely up to you when you have the power and when you will allow yourself to take it back. And that's what this astrology is all about. So, wow, intense squeezing, feeling like we're going into the portal, we're going to that tipping point, but it's all about getting lift and flying and seeing the bigger picture and letting go of the constructs that are no longer, that don't fit us, letting go of the shore and allowing ourselves to get in the power, the flow, truth, consciousness that lives within us. So I hope you'll consider joining. Coming up here in an hour and a half is from the live is the soul group session, a group intuitive session for this total lunar eclipse. Incredibly powerful energies. It's so great when we can come together and amplify our supernova power, see each other, be with each other, create these pathways of energetic communion and communication. And every time we get together, we build the supernova field. There's more information and wisdom and remembering and support, energetic support available for all supernova souls, whether they know they're supernova soul or not. On that note, I've been getting the message there's a huge wave of awakening in supernova souls that didn't know they were supernova souls. And that could be rather dramatic. And so pass this video on if you run into one of them. And so thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you on that soul group session, a group intuitive session for supernova souls to make the most of these powerful and intense times. And we'll go a little deeper into these dynamics and see what comes up in this group intuitive session where we're going to do that, open up those Akashic records, look at some shared past life pictures that can support all of us in this incredibly powerful and intense and concentrated journey ahead. See yourself being squeezed in, so that you find that one light and slip through into that bigger truth of who you are. And we're here together, we're doing it, but you had to do it alone. You had to, you chose for yourself not to have a savior because you've got to be your own in order to progress. So be present in the love that you are and keep bringing that consciousness, your power back home to your heart. And thank you so much for your incredible service to humanity, Supernova Soul. You are a rock star, superstar. And I hope you get a glimpse of that in a very beautiful way through this lunar eclipse energies. So I look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully at that lunar eclipse session or the next update. Happy total lunar eclipse. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.